Welcome back, everybody, to Niners Now. I'm your host, Brady Grustas, at GrustasBrady on X. You can follow me there. And today we'll be discussing Fred Warner's chances at the Defensive Player of the Year award and how he stacks up against other all-time linebacker legends. And of course, stick around until later in the show because lots of 49ers rookies are making noise. And we're going to talk about them all today. But before we begin, go ahead and subscribe down below, leave a like, leave a comment, and let's get into it. So on Wednesday, we got some major injury updates from both the 49ers and Cardinals ahead of their Week 3 matchup. For the Niners, the absolute biggest news of the day is that Brock Purdy was limited in practice on Wednesday and apparently still has a chance to start in Week 3. It'll all depend, of course, on how he responds to practice and how much pain he's in. But the fact that Brock is already limited after only missing a single game, that's huge for the Niners. Brock was, remember, expected to miss between 2 to 5 weeks, so clearly looking like it's going to be on the shorter end of that timetable. Kyle Shanahan also said in his press conference that there is a chance the Niners roll with Mac Jones as the starter, and Brock is the emergency backup quarterback. Now, to me, that feels like the most likely option. It seems like Brock is pretty close, and the most realistic return date for him is Week 4 against the Jaguars, at least to come back and be the full-time starter. But if he feels good enough, it would certainly be nice to have him as the backup over Adrian Martinez in case a disaster happens and Mac Jones gets hurt. Also on Wednesday, we did find out that the Niners' starting left guard, Ben Bartch, is officially headed to injured reserve, and his spot on the active roster will be taken by tight end Brayden Willis. Willis gets the bump to the 53-man roster mostly because of his experience in the system. Both George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk are probably going to miss Week 3, so having Willis in to run some of those H-back / fullback / hybrid tight end responsibilities is definitely going to be helpful, especially because the Niners only have Luke Farrell and Jake Tonjes on the active roster for tight ends besides Willis. So, filling in for Willis' spot on the practice squad is offensive tackle Brandon Parker, who worked out with the team on Tuesday and won the chance to potentially play some backup snaps for San Francisco now that Spencer Burford is dealing with a knee injury. This signing kind of makes it feel like Burford is going to miss Week 3, but we'll see as the week goes on, and hopefully this injury to Burford is not a long-term issue. And as for the Arizona Cardinals, our focus is all on the cornerbacks this week. Starting nickel corner Garrett Williams is headed to IR, as well as backup edge rusher LJ Collier, and that'll rule both of them out for this game. Starting cornerback Max Melton did practice on Wednesday, so he should be good to go, and I imagine he probably plays in Week 3. But Will Johnson, the talented second-round rookie for the Cardinals and the third Cardinals cornerback to get injured in Week 2, did not practice on Wednesday. So one corner is out, that's Garrett Williams. One corner is good to go, that's Max Melton. And Will Johnson is still a question mark, so we will monitor that situation as the week progresses. So that's your injury report for today. We spent a lot of time on injuries this week, but this is a week that I think injuries will matter a lot, and they'll really determine who comes out on top on Sunday. So do you think that Brock Purdy will be ready for a return in Week 3, or do you think the Niners should keep him out another week? Let me know in the comments down below. Now, the NFL announced on Wednesday that Fred Warner is the NFC Defensive Player of the Week for Week 2. And he certainly deserved it. He was outstanding against the Saints. Genuinely, you cannot play linebacker much better than Fred did on Sunday. He had 11 tackles, a tackle for loss, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery against Alvin Kamara. I think the gap between Fred Warner and every other linebacker in the league is way bigger than the gap between the best and second best player at every other position. I mean, maybe Brandon Aubrey at kicker is dominating as much as Fred is, but Fred is so clearly not just the best linebacker in the league, but the best linebacker of the generation. And you can see it each and every week. He's clearly back to that elite form that he was playing at before his foot injury last year. And man, I'll be honest, I don't think that there's a better player on defense in the entire league. I think Max Crosby has been fantastic already in this young season, and Myles Garrett is as good as he ever is. Nick Bosa has been great, of course, too, but Fred, man, Fred is just different. It's hard to even explain, really, because you can point to all the stats, but for me, what really sets Fred apart is that he can do literally everything. He has the speed and the vision to shoot gaps and blow up run plays. He has the smarts and the athleticism to cover tight ends, running backs, even wide receivers in space. And he has the violence and the precise technique needed to force a fumble. And by the way, he is now tied with Patrick Willis for the most forced fumbles in 49ers history. And Warner shows up in huge moments. I mean, look at this fumble from this past week. The Saints were driving late in the third quarter, down by a score, when Warner came up with that fumble recovery. That's a massive play in a really close game, and it's definitely part of the reason that the Niners came away with the win. It feels nearly impossible for a linebacker to win the Defensive Player of the Year award these days, but if Fred can keep up this level of play, I think he deserves it as much, if not more, than Luke Kuechly did back in the day when he won that award. And that's no disrespect to Luke Kuechly. That dude was a monster, and he is a Hall of Famer. But Fred is clearly on that level of player to me. Do you think that Fred Warner should win Defensive Player of the Year? Let me know down below in the comments. And now for our final segment of the day, let's take a look at how the rookies are doing. Their sample size is getting bigger and bigger each week, and we're seeing some pretty big movement in the rookie rankings already in this young season. So who's moving up and who's moving down? Well, to start, I've got all 4 of the rookies at the bottom of my list in the same spots. A little anticlimactic, I know, but there's movement to come, don't worry. I've got Jordan James at 10, Jordan Watkins at 9, Nick Martin at 8, and Drew Moss at 7. All of those guys are exactly where they were last time I ranked the rookies. And this makes sense, right? These guys were all good enough to make the 53-man roster, but they have not yet had the chance to actually play on game days. None of those 4 dressed in week 1 or week 2, so technically they haven't made their NFL debuts yet, and for that reason, I can't really justify moving any of them around just yet, but they will have their moments. Jawan Jennings gets more and more banged up every week, and Sky Moore is quickly becoming just a return man, so I think that we will eventually see Jordan Watkins get some run on offense. Brian Robinson Jr. and Isaac Guerendo have not exactly been impressive so far, so Jordan James' time is definitely coming at running back. And Ben Bartch was just put on injured reserve, so maybe we see Drew Moss in a backup role in the meantime. Have patience with these guys. They will show their value soon enough, and these are some of my favorite rookies in the entire class, so I have full confidence in the 4 of them. But let's get on to the top 6 now. This is where all the movement is really happening. These 6 rookies are the guys who are actually playing and contributing, and it's been a bit of up and down for every one of them, but there's something to be excited about for every player here, including the number 6 rookie on my list, defensive tackle CJ West. West has so far taken the longest of all the top 6 rookies to really get his feet under him and earn that playing time. He only played 7 defensive snaps in week 1, but that nearly doubled as he got 13 snaps in week 2. He's looked all right in those limited snaps, right? Nothing especially embarrassing or especially impressive, but it's clear to me at least that he's still earning the trust of the coaching staff, and he's still trying to increase that workload. And it doesn't exactly help him that both Jordan Elliott and Kalia Davis are playing pretty well so far this year, including against double teams, which is kind of the role that they brought in CJ West for. Now, this is great news for the 49ers because, holding up against these double teams was something that both Elliott and Davis struggled with for their entire careers leading up to this year. But against the Saints, I saw 92 and 93 hold up against those doubles multiple times. But we're talking about CJ West, who will hopefully see his snap count continue to go up and start flashing some of that strength that we saw at Indiana. Now, at number 5, dropping down 2 spots, is safety Marquise Siegel. Siegel was a revelation in the preseason, shout out to Dieter and Hutch, and he quickly earned that starting safety role. But through 2 weeks, we've seen the coverage issues with Marquise Siegel start to show up more often. He's allowed a few big chunk plays in man coverage, and that's just not what you want to see from a starting safety. Yes, he's a day 3 rookie, right? He should be granted some patience. But if this starts to become a pattern with him, it'll be a real problem for this defense because he is starting for this team. I'm very curious to see if Siegel continues to start once Malik Mustafa is back from injury. Because you could argue that Siegel should start. Presumably, you'd want Siegel and Mustafa as your safety duo going forward, so why not just have them play next to each other now? Well, there's a chance that Jason Pinnock is just the better player than Siegel by that point in the season. It's not something that the coaches will have to decide for a while, but it's certainly in the back of my mind as I watch Siegel. And with all that said, he has absolutely been a great fit in this scheme and provided a lot of energy to this defense, and it makes sense why he has earned that starting role. Now, coming in at number 4 is defensive tackle Alfred Collins. Collins moves up 2 spots from number 6 up to number 4. He certainly started slow, right? In week 1, he only played 9 snaps, and some of those snaps were ugly. Seattle's rookie guard, Gray Zabel, got the better of Collins more than once. But in week 2, Collins jumped up to 24 snaps, and you can really see why when you turn on the tape. He didn't play perfect against the Saints by any means, but as I watched, I really started to notice that raw power that Collins came into the league with, He had one play that's kind of been circling on Twitter. He blew up an Alvin Kamara run by literally taking the guard that was, blocking him and throwing him into the running lane. That shut down the play entirely. Alvin couldn't go forward because there was a guard in the lane, so he had to bounce the run to the outside where Nick Bosa was waiting for him with open arms. It was pretty nasty, man. Collins, he's strong. He also got his first pressure and his first quarterback hit in week 2 when he blasted through the right guard and the right tackle to affect Spencer Rattler's throw. And on that play in particular, you can really see the sneaky athleticism that he has. I mean, we mentioned this in his scouting report, but he's not just this big lumbering dude who kind of half jogs down the field. He got skinny to get through 2 blockers and got to Rattler in a hurry on that play. And he used his long arms to swim over blockers and disengage consistently. Now, I want to see more of that out of Collins going forward. If he can do that, I think he'll be a full-time starter very soon. Now, let's go to the top 3. And at number 3, I have nickel corner Upton Stout. Stout drops 2 places this time around. He was tied at number 1 last time we ranked, and he now falls down to number 3. Stout had a pretty rough week 1. There were nice plays, like the leaping pass breakup in the 4th quarter, but he was cooked pretty consistently by Jackson Smith-Njigba. He certainly improved in week 2. He nearly doubled his snap count, but he still showed that his coverage is a work in progress. Stout does a good job staying in phase with receivers and staying sticky, as I've noticed, but because he is a smaller guy, he kind of gets worried that he'll lose his man, and he instinctively starts to just grab and hold on to the jersey. And obviously that's a penalty, right? You can't do that. There were a couple times it went uncalled in week 2, but of course the one time he was called for it, he actually had a pretty clean rep. It was ironic. And that was a brutal penalty too. It gave the Saints a first down conversion off of a 3rd and very long. I believe it was like 3rd and 14. And that drive led to a touchdown. But of course, like I said, it was not a good call from the refs. Stout made a really clean play on the ball, and he broke up the pass in a huge spot. I believe he was matched up with Chris Olave. But sometimes those calls just don't go your way, right? Regardless of the outcome of that play, Stout is going to have to continue improving his discipline and get less grabby at the top of the route. But what I did really love from Stout was his physicality. He had a beautiful run fit and tackle for loss against the Saints. And of course, he got his first NFL sack, on a nickel blitz. Saleh ran quite a few nickel blitzes for Stout, and he was whooping the running backs in pass protection. Whether it was Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller, didn't matter. Stout was getting around those guys with ease. And Spencer Rattler's not the easiest guy to bring down, right? But Stout was able to get in there and wrap him up for the sack nice and easily. Kyler Murray in week 3 is going to be a whole different test, but it definitely seems like Stout is improving, and I'm excited to see where he goes from here. Now at number 2, this guy's become the biggest riser of the entire rookie class. It's starting left guard, Connor Colby. When I first started ranking the rookie class back in August, Colby didn't even crack the top 10. I mean, I thought this guy wasn't going to make the 53-man roster, and I know I'm not the only one. Colby has surprised many of us in the Niners community, but now, after only 2 weeks of regular season action, Colby is the starting left guard, and he's playing great. He looked mean, he was moving great, and he didn't allow a single pressure in his 61 snaps on Sunday. Was he perfect? No. Definitely not, right? He was late on a couple of blocks that I saw, but those seemed like timing issues. And timing issues can usually be fixed with more reps and more time with the starting unit. I was super impressed with what Colby was able to do, coming in completely cold off the bench in place of the injured Ben Bartch. It really seemed like the offense opened up once Colby came into the game in the first quarter, and hopefully that kind of success can continue for Colby next week against Arizona, because he's got a real opportunity here to lock down a starting spot on this offense for years to come. And if he keeps playing like he did on Sunday, then he certainly will, in my mind. Now, last but certainly not least, it's the best rookie in the class for the Niners, the top 11 pick himself, Mykel Williams. Mykel is such a baller, man. He's already playing as many snaps as anyone not named Nick Bosa on the defensive line. He's lining up all over the place, and he is productive wherever you put him. Like we've been saying all summer, Mykel's run defense is ready on day one, and he had himself a day against the Saints. He was blowing up run plays like it was his job, which, of course it is his job. He was the single most double-teamed edge rusher in football in week 1, and he was immediately disruptive in week 2 when that number kind of came back down to earth a bit. He had an awesome pressure against the Saints where he drove the guard back into Rattler's lap with one arm, held up the other arm to block the passing lane, and he squeezed the pocket so much that Rattler had no choice but to run right into Nick Bosa's open arms. It was a fantastic play from Mykel Williams, and while Bosa did get the sack, make no mistake, that play was made by Mykel Williams. He's by no means a flashy pass rusher, right? He's not going to beat his man with aggressive swipes or spin moves or, whatever. But he is a freaky athlete, and he has power. And sometimes that's all it takes to beat your man. So that's my ranking of the top 10 rookies on the Niners. Who do you think has been the most impressive rookie so far this year? Let me know down below in the comments. And of course, let me know if you enjoyed. Leave a comment, leave a like, and let me know if there's any topics that you would like to see me cover. Thank you all for watching, and subscribe for 49ers videos 5 days a week. I'm Brady Grustas, at GrustasBrady on X. This has been Niners Now, and I'll see you tomorrow.